Hey, welcome back to Taste Kitchen. My name is Paul Barron, and again, we are here virtually in a way and doing our continued exploration of some of the best wines in the business. And one of these wines that we've had a chance to bring in today, you might kind of recognize this, but maybe not because it's kind of hard to find. I've got Mr. Patz, who is coming to us from the Secret Door Winery. Great to have you on the show today.
Thank you. It's wonderful to be here.
All right, Mr. Patz, let's break down a little bit about your background. Most people in the wine business know you as a great winemaker in the Pinot varieties, the Chardonnay varieties, but today we're going to be looking at a Cabernet that you've got, which is a little bit different than kind of your legacy. Talk to me a little bit about kind of how Secret Door started and the whole process here.
You're absolutely right. My background would, especially if you've only known me for the last 25 years or so, would look like it's only Chardonnay and Pinot Noir. But actually, I started in the wine business working for two different wineries that specialized in Cabernet Sauvignon. I worked for Flora Springs Winery back in the mid-'80s, and then Gerard Winery briefly after that. So I do have a background in Cabernet too. But primarily my job has been working with Patz Hall. And we started that in 1988. And in 2016, after 28 vintages together, we sold the company. And I went on to continue for another year working with the people that had purchased it. It was purchased by the Saint Michel Wine Estate Wine Group. And after that year, I sat down with my boss and we had a really nice conversation. It was clear that they weren't really sure what they wanted me to do going forward. So I said, hey, just release me from my non-compete and I'll be happy to move on and you won't have to pay me anymore. And they agreed to that. So May 1st, 2017, I hit the ground running. And there were two projects that I really had in mind from the very beginning. This Secret Door was one of them. And the other one is a Chardonnay and Pinot project out of Russian River called Maritana. Secret Door, if you read the information on my website, it was by my wife, who at the time we were dating was living in Virginia, and I was trying to convince her to move to California. And one of her responses was, I don't really like Pinot Noir that much anyway. So she says, I'd rather drink Bordeaux or Napa Valley Cabernet. And I said, fine, move to California and I'll make Cabernet Sauvignon for you. And I don't think she really believed me, but eventually she did move to California, and we ended up getting married. And when I had the opportunity leaving Patz Hall, this seemed like a perfect time to actually complete my promise to her. So I was looking for two different areas to purchase grapes from as well. And one of them is in Steg's Leap. That's a vineyard called Hirondelle. I do as a single vineyard as well. And then this wine that we're going to taste today is from a vineyard called Sage Ridge, which is in the eastern hills of the Napa Valley. If anybody is familiar with the Napa Valley, it's up Sage Canyon Road. And as you go out of the valley to the east on Sage Canyon Road, Pritchard Hill would be on your right. And this vineyard is up on the hills to the left, looking down on Pritchard Hill, which would be to the south. Anyway, just to kind of locate it a little bit, I want to make sure that, if you've been out here, that you have some sense of where it is. But up above what's called Lake Hennessy, that one of the water sources for the valley. It's a spectacular site. And these mountainside vineyards, I think, really produce wines of concentration and power as opposed to, subtlety and complexity. And so there you go.
Well, that's something I think a lot of people, if you're an enthusiast, you already know these things in terms, especially when you look at Napa Valley and some of the wines that come out of Napa, is if you move 1 mile one way, you have a completely different flavor profile in these wines. It's pretty amazing. How far are you from, say, the Rombauer vineyard?
It's hard to define. I mean, it depends on if you're going by as the crow flies or if you're going as you're driving. So if you were driving, it would probably be a 20-minute drive away, 25-minute drive away. From
Hmm.
if you were doing it by the crow fly, it's probably just a few miles, but you have to
Yeah.
go
Okay.
south and then east to get there. So
Right. Yeah. The reason I ask is because I've seen and been in that region, and I've looked at a lot of cabs from Napa, and Rombauer is one of my favorites. I've had them on the show here, and have
nice
kind of
people.
looked at that. Yeah, have looked at that region, and I've noticed that there's a lot of similarities, especially in the Cabernets, of this super huge, powerful, great flavor profile that I think a lot of people really kind of love. I have not had a chance to taste this, so that's definitely going to be one that is going to be a first for me, and we'll get a kind of chance to kind of break into it. I'm going to open this bottle. By the way, great packaging when you sent this to us. I love this piece. Does this come with all 6 bottle wine orders, or are you guys doing this with singles and doubles?
It's the box comes with a 6-pack. It's a 6-pack, and if you
Okay.
order 6,
Yeah.
you get the wood box. Yeah.
Right. I like it. Okay. Well, it's a beautiful package. I think it was one of those that was kind of fun for our studio to open, because normally we get, the typical wine shipment in for for what we're doing. When you look
Well,
at
this is top end wine, and I think
oh,
that
for sure, for sure.
sometimes it's important to send that signal along with the wine that this is serious stuff, and you should you should be thrilled to be able to get it, and we're thrilled to be able to send it. So it's all the way around. Interestingly
Beautiful.
enough, you've already peeled the wax off the top. If you show one of the other bottles, you can see
Yep,
that
absolutely.
the wax is these are all wax dipped. If you use the sort of waiter style corkscrew, you can go straight through the wax and then pull the cork
Okay,
out.
and then go right
It
out.
makes a real break too.
I like that. It was an excellent touch. You see that on just a handful of wines out there in the market, but this is definitely. I can already start to get the aroma out of this. So this is a very interesting piece already. Oh, great color too. Amazing. All right, so we're going to go ahead and start with that guy right there. Make sure we've got the label up there. What was so when you were looking at location, especially for grapes of this variety, and understanding kind of the geography there in Napa, and especially when you get into the tannin makeup, as well as kind of just the soil makeup itself, were you going all the way down into taking a look at what vineyards could potentially produce something that you kind of envisioned in your mind?
Absolutely. Yeah. I spent quite a bit of time looking at vineyards. It's an interesting thing when you mention soils, because there's such a diversity of soils in the Napa Valley. Actually, all over
Yeah.
California, there's a lot of different soils. It's quite complex geologically. So even within a few miles, or even in some cases within a few hundred feet, the soils can change radically.
Right.
And so soil is an important part, but I really look at where it's situated within the Napa Valley. Some spots are warmer, some are cooler, and that's going to impact the characteristics of the wine. Also the grower, honestly. You know, if you have a spectacular site and a guy who is kind of a rookie, they can easily mess it up and make for a much less interesting wine. And you can also move around if you've got an awesome grower who's really on top of his game or her game.
Right.
You can elevate a site and actually create wines, I think, above what you would normally expect to get from there. So I was really excited to be able to work with Sage Ridge for a number of reasons. That it had recently been purchased by Judy Jordan, who had sold her winery, Jay, a couple of years earlier, and purchased this land as part of that deal. So it's a really vineyard in that it's sort of these series of like little garden-sized plots that run along the ridgetop, hence Sage Ridge.
Yeah.
And my little plot is a little bit over 1 acre, planted to a clone that they have planted nowhere else on that site, called Martha's Vineyard clone. It's a selection from Martha's Vineyard in the Napa Valley, which there's quite a few of, actually. But the fact that it was in this beautiful place, but also had a distinctive clone that was going to separate it from all other Sage Ridge wines, really caught my attention, and they're meticulous up there. I talked with the with the head of grape growing for them on a number of occasions prior to signing the contract to make sure that we were all on the same page with what we wanted to accomplish. And that means typically smaller yields, but also very precise care in the vineyard in order to get the quality we're looking for.
Yeah, for sure. Well, let's get a taste here. Great aroma, by the way. This is definitely, you can tell in the glass that you have something special. Okay, so there you have it. Wow. Okay, this is this is amazing. All right, now I see why all the rave over this one.
I'm glad that
very
you
bold,
like it.
But I love just the power it's got. This is one of those wines. When you look for a cab, at least for me, I don't like wimpy cabs. I like cabs that can really stand on their own, really provide you a deep flavor profile, especially when you're looking at pairing this, which our listeners and viewers really look at trying to match up wines with their menus. And typically you're dealing with either high-end Italian or a great steak place, which this bad boy right here would be a good top selection. To get some of the notes here, so cedar and pine come through a lot. I really get that in the aroma itself. Why is that? What's bringing that through? Is it just the terrain there that I'm feeling and kind of getting through as far as the aroma?
So these are interesting questions, and every winemaker has an answer, but I have to say that I think some of it is just a guess. But it's clear that Cabernet Sauvignon is a natural cross between two other grape varieties. And it was isolated in Bordeaux and is widely planted there. Actually, Merlot is more widely planted, but it is widely planted in Bordeaux. The cross is between Cabernet Franc and Sauvignon Blanc. And if you know Sauvignon Blanc, it's a white grape variety. It has this very distinctly herbal note to it. So Cabernet Sauvignon, being a blend of Cabernet Franc and Sauvignon Blanc, should have a slightly herbal note to it. If it smells like raisins or black plums without any of that herb note in the background, then it's not really showing what Cabernet Sauvignon is all about, in my opinion. I found this spot up there at Sage Ridge really interesting because it is surrounded by a very dry area, and it has a lot of these aromatic like sage and rosemary and bay in particular. Bay trees line the little creek that on the drive up there, and bay will give this sort of background aroma. When you're standing up there in the middle of summer, it's spectacular. The aroma of the area is just so exotic, and you kind of have to think that maybe that had something to do with the flavors and the aromas in here, but exactly how that gets translated into a wine is not easy to explain. Except that Cabernet should taste like this, and that is for me, this is exactly the kind of Cabernet I remember drinking when I first got interested in wine back in the late 70s and early 80s. That there was this real tang of herbaceousness, in a real positive way of herbaceousness, that I think sometimes we've lost a little bit in California, just looking for raw power.
Yeah, I think you're right. When you look at a lot of winemakers, in many cases, they're just looking to kind of get into that herd of good Cabernets, not great Cabernets. And that's kind of the difference, at least we're looking for when you look at our top 10 and our top 20 wines here on Foodable, is we are looking for those standouts. And I can definitely see why the SOMs around the country have kind of recommended this one as one of their leaders. A little bit about some of the tasting notes. So, and this was interesting because I looked at a few SOM notes out there that were in the market. Obviously, you kind of get that black pepper hint, but what was interesting to me when you have something that's that poignant in a Cabernet is that it typically is not a super silky wine, where this one really is. So it's kind of almost serving two masters here. And that is a very interesting thing for the palate. Do you get many customers that kind of recognize kind of the versatility of this wine?
I hope so. I think so. What I'm looking for is balance between, or what I like to think of as harmony between all the different elements in the wine. And
Right.
so none of them stand out and dominate. And tannin is something, particularly with these mountainside vineyard fruit sources, that it can be enormous. It can be so tannic that it's really painful. So we were very careful during the fermentation in order to make sure that that we extracted it properly, but that we didn't over extract and get things that we wanted to then try to eliminate later. And I really, it's sort of part of the philosophy from front to back. I'm trying to do, not because I'm lazy, but what I really want to do is bring the grapes in so that they flow through the process without having to be fiddled with too much. And winemakers like to make, they like to add on stuff. They like to feel like they're having an impact. It's just sort of a natural human thing, I think. And so I want to pick these grapes so that I can basically put them in the fermenter and let them ferment, and they'll come out with what I want. And so it has a lot to do with the timing of when you pick the grapes.
Yeah.
If you pick them early, you're going to get a lot more herbal notes. If you pick them really late, you're going to lose that herbaceousness, and it'll be more like plum jam.
Yeah, exactly. Well, for those of you who are, of course, tuned in now and you've been kind of appreciating this is the Secret Door, the 2017 Napa Valley Sage Ridge Vineyard that we've been tasting today, obviously mastered by Mr. Patz there. So thank you so much for being on today's episode. We appreciate that. Definitely a winner. I can see it. I can't wait to see the shakeout on the top 20 ranking for this one. It's going to be fun.
Look forward to it as well. I'm excited to see where we come in, but it was really a pleasure to be here. And thank you for the opportunity to talk a little bit about the Secret Door project.
Absolutely. Thank you, Mr. Patz. And for all of you tuning in, you're maybe catching this over on YouTube or maybe on our website, foodabletv.com. Or maybe this is finding its way into other streaming services as we continue to expand our content. We're going to be looking for a few more of our top 20 wines here for 2020 to join the ranks with Secret Door right here. So stay tuned right here on Taste Kitchen for more great Wine Labs series. We'll catch you soon.